turn my microphone on. I'd like to call the June 17th meeting of the BET to order. I'm sorry. Start with salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I just want to make sure, is the wizard on? Are we on TV? Are we live? Yeah. We're live? Good, thank you. Which light is it that you look at?
Right over there.
Oh, okay, there we go. I didn't see it. Okay, and we are missing one of our members tonight. Mr. Johnson is off on the college hunting trip with his daughter. I said I'm not at that level yet, but I sympathize with the expenses coming his way. And he laughed and said, well, you got to do it. So I wish him luck. He's having fun this week, I'm sure. And I think Mary Lee's been doing that, and I'm like, oh, boy. Okay. So with that, we're here, we're rolling. Okay, so I would call first for our routine applications, and I would call on our clerk for those two items.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move NW 11, Nathaniel Witherell, in the amount of $6,600, a transfer for the purpose of general liability.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Pellegrino.
Okay. All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining. So it is 11-0-0. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move PW 8, Department of Public Works, $20,000, a transfer for maintenance of machinery.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining. 11-0-0. Okay, at this time, I will call on the Chair of the Budget Committee for our non-routine applications, and I will start with ED7, Mr. Pellegrino.
Mr. Chairman, I move ED7. This is from the Department of Education. It is a release of conditions regarding the proposed digital learning program. The amount is for $1,126,000.
Second.
Moved second by Mr. Finger. Discussion, please.
Mr. Chairman?
Committee report first. I'm sorry.
That's okay. The committee took this up this past week. ED7 calls for the release of $1,126,000 as the initial investment in the new digital learning program. This item was passed and approved in the capital budget for fiscal year 2013-2014. The condition, as stated, was twofold. Specifically, the condition states, subject to release by the Board of Estimate and Taxation upon 1, the BET's review of the Board of Education's digital learning plan for fiscal year 13-14, and 2, the districts shall provide the BET with a status update report regarding the digital learning implementation at the January 2014 BET meeting. For purposes of this release, only the first part of the condition was relevant. By way of background, the digital learning program is a work in process. From the first time this initiative was brought to the Budget Committee's attention during the budget deliberations this past January and February, the administration made it perfectly clear that the scope, process, and execution of this initiative was subject to change as we proceed to bring the district into the digital age. Given the volume of information and detail the initial phase of this program entails, the administration presented to the Budget Committee the body of their report as well as the consultant's report last month. Each member of the committee, as well as the BET board at large, had over a month to review, study, and question the material provided. At the Budget Committee's deliberations, the following information was discussed. First, the digital learning program will initially be rolled out to Riverside School and Hamilton Avenue School starting in January of 2014. These are the two initial schools which will implement digital learning school-wide. Second, between now and January of 2014, on a district-wide basis, priority will be given to making sure the internet backbone for the district is up to speed, an instructional digital management system is selected and put in place, and preparation for SBAC administration is underway. SBAC referring to the Common Core standards and the testing for such, which will be administered in digital format going forward district-wide. 3, of the $1,126,000 being appropriated, approximately $389,000 or 35% is for personnel. The balance is for software, hardware, and contingency. 4, of the $389,000 for personnel, approximately $25,000 is for technical support, $129,000 is for project management and planning, and $235,000 is for instructing our teachers in how to use the new technology and build their lesson plans around one-on-one digital devices. 5, the balance of the funds, $735,000, will be used accordingly. $202,000 is for project contingency, $180,000 is for hardware leasing, $262,000 is for selecting and leasing an operating system, which will be the portal to storing, accessing, and monitoring the materials for instruction. And finally, $93,000 will be for digital instructional resources. 6, a Director of Digital Learning and Technology position has been created, and the district is in the process of finding the first person to fill this role. This position will report to the Director of Operations, Mr. Ben Branyan. In addition to the Director of Digital Learning and Technology and Mr. Branyan, Ms. Irene Parisi, Assistant Superintendent, will be instrumental in the implementation of this program. Finally, it should be noted again that this is a work in process. Much will be learned over the next 6 to 12 months, if not longer. In all likelihood, changes will be made in about every aspect of the plan. Much needs to be done. Much will be accomplished. The Budget Committee voted 4-0 to release this condition, and we look forward to hearing back from the district in January as to what progress has been made and what they have discovered in their journey to implementing a new age of learning in our district. That's our report.
Thank you. No other committees discussion? Mr. Goldrick?
I wonder if I could ask a question of either Dr. McCursey or Chairman Moriarty. I'm curious, in this program that's been laid out over a 5-year program, is it very similar or being patterned on the digital learning programs of top school districts in the New York metropolitan area or top suburban school districts in Connecticut? Or is this being created sort of ab ovum? I see that in the original report, there was reference to Huntsville, Alabama, and Mooresville, North Carolina. So I'm curious if you are patterning this on what's been done before, those districts that are have been in advance of us, or whether we're trying to invent something new.
Thank you for the questions, and if necessary, both Ben and Irene can speak to this. Very much we're building this as much as we can on modeling those who've come before. For example, on the project management process, we're about to, if this works well tonight and goes through with your vote, we're about to sign a contract or negotiate with Improve LLC, which is from the greater New York area. They beat out Pearson to be the project manager by a tune of almost $200,000 in savings. Far many more hours, much better prepared, all the rest, and they can work with us very much to learn the best from other districts around. The evidence we'd shown for other districts was to show we are looking broadly for advice, counsel, best practice. But for sure we have to build something that makes sense to Greenwich, but to look at what is going on elsewhere. It's also important to know, as I've said before, digital learning is well underway in the district. You cannot walk into a Greenwich school and not find digital learning. In 3 of the distinguished teachers' classrooms I visited in the last 3 weeks, those are digital learning classrooms. They're blended learning. If you go to ISD, it's really the best example of what we could have with blended learning. If you go to Hamilton Ave already, you'll find it. So a lot of what we've had is already underway in the district. What we're trying to do with this initiative is to get it organized, coordinated, and as cost-effective as possible for a district-wide implementation.
Are there any specific districts that are serving as models for you when you do this?
Not immediately at this point. We will, though, do that through the help of Improve if we're able to work through tonight and then move into them as move into having them as the project manager. But we will for sure look at other districts. There are a number ahead of us, and we will identify those and work to model them. That's one reason why in the preliminary material first proposals, there was reference to particular districts.
Any further questions? Thank you for coming out, and I recognize everyone from the Board of Ed, Ms. Moriarty. Not that you've had any meetings lately or anything, it's just morning, nights, days. We know what you're going through. Your list is long, but thank you very much. Any further questions? Okay. ED7. Yes, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 11-0-0. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again. I know I adjusted your agenda because I know everybody had other commitments. I tried to get you as early in the agenda as I could and hope that helped. No. Okay, Mr. Pellegrino, NW10, Nathaniel Witherell.
Mr. Chairman, I now move NW10. This is a release of conditions for $1 million brought before us by Nathaniel Witherell.
That item has been moved,
Second?
seconded by Mr. Finger. Committee report?
Mr. Chairman, NW10 calls for a release of conditions that were placed upon the fixed charge contribution to Nathaniel Witherell when the fiscal year 12-13 final budget was passed and approved. Specifically, the condition states, subject to release by the Board of Estimate and Taxation upon receipt of a report demonstrating the need for this contribution to Nathaniel Witherell. The report submitted to meet this condition was the Statement of Operations ending April 30th, 2013. This report shows that the cash flow for Nathaniel Witherell, which can be found in the line item titled Net Town Operating Results, was a negative $1,237,355 as of April 30th. The Budget Committee discussed with the leadership of Nathaniel Witherell their operating performance year-to-date, and were satisfied that as of this point in time, actual performance will track very closely to budget. Accordingly, we voted 4-0 to release the condition. In the course of our discussion, David Ormsby, the chairman of the board at Nathaniel Witherell, informed us that later this month, the Friends of Nathaniel Witherell will be releasing to the town a check for $1 million in accordance with the strategic plan to fund Project Renew. Mr. Ormsby also informed us that as of this point in time, Project Renew is about 3 months behind the original schedule. The original schedule called for breaking ground in September of 2012, and it was not until January of 2013 that the project really got underway. However, subsequent to the delayed start, the project is now moving ahead according to plan. That's the committee's report. We voted 4-0 in favor of releasing this condition.
Thank you. Discussion? So, I have a question for, maybe Peter can help me. So the million comes out of, it's appropriated in fixed charges, you're transferring it over to Nathaniel Witherell. This is going to cover through June 30, or do we expect that we might see them before the 90-day closeout? Or will this cover all the way through? Okay, I just wasn't sure, because I heard the 1.2 and I heard this is 1 million, and I'm like, okay, that didn't mathematically compute to me. Okay, so this will cover through 6/30/13 plus your 60-day.
They have enough appropriations. What this does, it's simply going to reduce their negative fund balance at the end of the year.
I'm with you.
Because they have enough appropriations to finish the year. So if we didn't give them the money, there'd be $1 million negative fund balance.
Now I got you. Thank you. Mr.
Just to
Pellegrino?
also clarify, this was for fiscal year 12-13. And
Current.
correct.
Yeah.
My point being that as soon as the clock ticks into July 1st, the new 13-14 budget calls for a $2 million appropriation to 2.0 million, 2.5. So they're going to have additional money in the next fiscal year budget also.
Okay, I understand that. Mr. Finger, I'm sorry.
And if I'm not mistaken, at the end of this month, or the beginning of next month, we'll be receiving, or expect to receive $1 million from the Friends of Nathaniel Witherell.
It should be, I think it's scheduled for
I think the question that was asked at the Budget Committee last week, and Kathleen was supposed to approach someone, we prefer the wire transfer on the 27th so that we can get the money into our books before June 30th. And that's, I think you were approached, and that's where it was left off at? We're trying to get the $1 million on our books before June 30th.
Right.
That's yours, 60 days.
Sorry?
Go ahead, Mr. Herber. I understood your
I'm
question.
sorry, but you have the 60 days at the end of the fiscal year too, don't you?
Oh, it's the cash. Yeah, definitely, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you get it after July 1, it can still be booked in?
It's, we're trying to improve our cash position as best as possible. When I get to the controller's report, I'll tell you a little bit about how good we did this year relative to last year.
Okay.
There's no question, it's just the cash we're trying to get it in by June 30th. There's no question it's going to show up in the CAFR either way favorably at June
Okay,
30th.
got it. I'm with you. Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay. NW10, I'll call for the vote on that item. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 1100. Okay, the next item the next item on our agenda is only something we do once a year, and it's actually called capital carry forward. We're not approving any of the appropriations. We're just, as per section 30D of the charter or 30B of the charter, we're continuing these in force because they haven't been committed to as of yet. They can go another year, and after that, then they would, if they're not committed, encumbered, et cetera, they would have to redo that. So what I was going to do is I was going to call on the chairman of the Budget Committee. I think the explanos are the same for all of them, and have them just call the different items, but individually and vote on those. So I just want to preference these. This is something we only do once a year as far as these type items. But, Mr. Finger, you,
Peter, will we be expecting other departments to submit some of their capital carry forward requests in July, or this is it?
This is it.
Okay.
We don't have, excuse me, we don't have any more transfers or anything. This,
We haven't final payrolls in yet, and that's like some transfers that the departments have to make, but
okay.
we'll know by the end of 2 weeks.
I think if you look back over the years and you go back up into the routine applications, and you could see where we had one transfer, is probably the best year we've ever had at year end as far as cleaning up the books, as far as transfers. And
That's why I'm asking. It
Yeah,
seemed pretty
it's-
light compared to previous
but you
years.
never know, there could always be somebody that comes up in the next couple of weeks with something, but it's nothing material that we see.
But to add to that, and I think I know where Mr. Finger's going, there were times where this was 2-3 pages long.
That was my point, yes.
And we had, in June, we typically had to do the transfers for the accounts to balance out, and we had an enormous amount of capital projects that weren't committed that we had to say, okay, we'll do another year. So it was a little bit different in those years. Those were a lot longer. This year, we seem to be getting more things done, and the departments the budgets are getting better aligned, so I think that's why you're seeing less of that. Mr. Pellegrino?
I was going to ask, is there a reason why we've gotten it down to such an efficient process?
I think you do a good job. The BET.
How could he answer that any other way?
No, I think it's just everybody's, a lot of communication, good communications.
I believe when we invented the monthly report on the burn rate, that helped. And I think on the capital side,
That's a good point. I think some of the reports that were, the revenue reports and the expense reports every year, everyone knows, we look at every department, and I think not this year, but the year before and the year before, there was a couple bad episodes where people had to come in where they didn't know they were overspending. So I think it's lessons learned, and
there's, everybody here should be happy about that. With that, I'll go back to PW9, and I'll call on you, Mr. Pellegrino.
Thank you, if I may. I'd like to move PW9. This is a capital carry forward for $1,150,000 for Department of Public Works regarding pump upgrades.
Moved and seconded, discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, give a very brief report that will impact all of the capital carry forwards. primarily, we had this discussion because they were with the Department of Public Works with Commissioner Siebert. And there's two things I thought that were most important. One is, for any number of reasons, generally it's permits they were slower in getting permits through the bureaucracy of the state. Sometimes it could be weather. But these were projects that really have been delayed, and they're anticipated to be delayed by a very short period of time. 3 months is the impression that I walk away with. The second thing is, that I thought was very interesting is that because the commissioner knew that these projects were going to be carried forward, she in fact did not ask for additional money in the capital budget when she came before us in this early January, February, March timeframe. And I just think that reflects very thoughtful planning on her part, being on top of what's going on, and is very good management in terms of how we tax and appropriate funds for capital projects. So I think that applies to all the Department of Public Works projects here, and I will not have a committee report on anything on the additional ones, except to say that on this one was 4-0 in our vote.
Okay. Discussion? All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Peter, I have a question, I think, for you, if I may. I'm not really understanding. I had raised this actually at the budget meeting, and I'm not sure if I understood your answer at that point. I'm sorry to ask the question twice. So we're carrying forward an appropriation from fiscal year 13. There are also appropriations that we're carrying forward from 11 and 12, but there's no application before us to do the carry forward on those, and I'm not sure if I understand why. You kindly distributed to us in our budget materials copies out of the budget book, and under Major Object Code 361 Sewer Division, we had pump upgrades that was 11,176 for a remaining balance of nearly $4.1 million. We also had pump upgrades from 12,179. And those are a carry forward of $1,066,000. Why are we not doing carry forwards on those?
There's two things. Number one is the rule of thumb here is that if they've started the project, no matter how slow it is, it's ongoing. And I think what's delaying them is the permitting process. But it's was not an acceptable answer to the Budget Committee. And if you recall, Amy Siebert and Rich Fiminella have to come to you in October and explain why the $4 million plus unspent monies from I think it was 10-11, and then $1 million plus in 11-12.
Right.
They have to come before you explain why they're moving so slowly. So the short answer is that they've spent money. The projects are moving.
Yeah, I see in the materials that we have that of the $4.2 million in 10-11 that was appropriated, a little under 80,000 was actually spent. Another 32,000 has been, almost 33,000 has been encumbered. But it seems to me that, I'm sorry, so the critical point is that if any portion of the appropriation, no matter how small, has been actually spent, then on that item we don't need to do a carry forward?
Well, you could spend money, but the project could be dead. They have to explain to you each year that it's ongoing. In the case of pump upgrades, it's the permitting process that's drawn out. But again, is the reason has to be explained further, and they're going to be called in October to explain why these two projects are proceeding too slowly. But again, the answer is, in the case of the $1.1 million, they haven't spent any money, so they're asking you for permission to bring it forward. In the case of the other ones, slow moving, but they've spent money.
If I may add to that, let me see if you agree with this statement. Once they commit to an expenditure or a contract, they have they are permitted to encumber, meaning the project has begun and it is an encumbrance at that point in time.
But this project, Mr. Chairman, the 13 appropriation, I have 3,000 in small change is encumbered. I have zero spent, but I have 3,000 encumbered.
Because they said they did something that committed that money.
I understand. I'm not. No part of my comments here intended to query or question the administration of these projects by the Department of Parks and Recreation. I'm sorry, the Public Works. My interest here only is to be sure that we don't inadvertently cause a lapse by failing to carry forward appropriations that are necessary for the ongoing work. And so, let me ask it again. You're saying to me that if I have actual dollars spent, which is what I don't have on the appropriation for 12-13, if I have actual dollars spent out of the earlier appropriation, that item doesn't need a carry forward. But if I don't have actual dollars spent, that's when I may be in danger of a lapse, and we have an obligation then to address it and either carry it forward or allow it to lapse.
That's correct. But
Okay.
I did ask Roland as a follow-up to last week's meeting. He said that the bigger project was stalled because of the PCBs. They found contamination, and it delayed the project.
Again, I don't care why it was delayed, and I'm not questioning the way in which
Just
we're doing the work.
process.
I only want to be sure that we don't inadvertently cause a lapse by not doing a carry forward on the nearly $4.1 million from 10-11 and the somewhat over $1 million from 11-12. And you're saying to me that we don't need to deal with a carry forward, there will be no lapse there because there's dollars spent out of those appropriations.
Plus, there's no reason for us to strike them from the records as far as the...
I agree, that's what I want not to do. I want to not strike an
No.
appropriation that they require.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm not sure I understand yet, but thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
PW9, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? 1100. PW10?
PW10, Mr. Chairman, is Department of Public Works, capital carry forward for the stormwater program for $150,000.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 1100.
PW11, capital carry forward, Department of Public Works for $460,000. This is for the Lake Avenue and Simmons Lane drain.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 1100.
PW12, Department of Public Works, capital carry forward. This is for streetlights, $295,000.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Raymer. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? 1100.
And finally, NW12, Nathaniel Witherall. This is a capital carry forward for ongoing maintenance of $330,000.
Item's been moved.
Second?
Seconded by Mr. Finger. Discussion?
Yes.
Oh, Mr. Finger.
I just want to add some specificity to this one. It's described as capital carry forward ongoing maintenance. This is specifically earmarked for upgrades to the tower's long-term resident rooms. I just want to make sure that it's clear that that's what this money is being used for.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 1100. That takes care of our items, and that moves us to our next item, to our assessor's report. Hello there. Good evening, good evening, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the BET. I'd like you to submit the assessor's report for June 2013. If you don't know, tax bills were sent out on June 12th, and currently we are answering taxpayers' questions and inquiries. Majority of our work this month will be prorating the motor vehicles, and that should go through the end of July. Just a clarification, our litigation, I have updated this report to show and reflect the 16 additional court cases that were filed on the 2012 grand list. As of July 2012, since then to present, we have settled 34 cases for the past year. Also, in addition, we have finalized figures for the senior tax relief program. We are actually showing the actual figures this year and not the estimates. So these were the actual credits that will show on the seniors' tax bills this year. Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I had a quick question, Lauren, and thank you to you and Bob for sending me last year's information. So it looks like the total senior tax relief went up from last year. Last year was 828,694. Is that right? And then this year we're at 878,776.
If I can clarify, I believe the 828,694 did not include the co-ops. We have 41 additional co-ops that we, in the past, have figured in sometime in July and August, because we don't necessarily credit, we don't show it as a credit on their tax bill because there's just one tax bill for the entire co-op. So I don't believe that the figure last year included those
Okay.
co-ops of those 41.
So apples to apples would be, 828 would be higher by,
By another $50,000.
so the trend line's pretty flat
Basically,
then
yes.
versus last year. And the number of applicants,
The number of applicants includes, in the 727 figure, includes applicants that were denied. The number I have here is just basically the applicants that we granted the credits to. I don't necessarily take everybody, we get a lot of inquiries on the senior program, and it requires them to give us their tax return and their confidential information. I don't take that application if they don't seem to be close, or I don't like to keep that confidential information if I don't have to. So I'm not necessarily keeping track of all the people who inquire about this program. I'm keeping track of all those who actually we grant the credit to.
so again, those numbers are not apples to apples
Unfortunately
versus
not.
last year.
But they will be going forward.
Going forward, okay. Do you have generally a sense of our trend line on both the dollar figure and the applications?
It's about the same, yeah.
It's pretty
It
flat
hasn't- it
over
has-
the last
yes.
5 years?
It hasn't fluctuated that much. As we increase the credits each year, the number of applicants, I think we see new applicants, as well as a number of the seniors also either selling or falling, or selling their property or moving on, so they don't qualify for the senior credit. Okay.
Mr. Finger?
Roland, if I'm not mistaken, the line item that we're carrying the budget for senior tax relief was about 930? It was 900 plus. So this actually came in a little bit less than what we had budgeted. I think the same thing happened last year also. Might want to revisit those, fine-tune those numbers for the next budget.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? I will entertain a motion that the assessor's report be accepted.
I so move.
Moved by Ms. Tarkington,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Raymer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you. That brings us to item number 4, which is the controller's report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, BET members. Start on the front page under risk management. I'd like to really commend Ron Lally, the risk manager, who's been very aggressive working with Franklin Company. Franklin Company is the insurance broker who was just retained for another period of 3 to 5 years through the RFP process. They gave a report to the audit committee, I think it was either January or February, predicting anywhere from 20 to 30% increases in the liability and the property insurance lines. And Ron has been very aggressive, spending a lot of time in addition to processing the Hurricane Sandy claim. And you could see on here, although it's not completed yet, he's been able to keep the liability coverage down to well below 10%. And he thinks he's going to do well in the property insurance area. Two of the drivers in these two insurance policies was the little boy that drowned in the swimming pool. It had an impact on the renewal process under the liability coverage, and of course the hurricanes over the last year, especially the Hurricane Sandy on the property liability insurance. So again, I'd like to commend the risk manager for all the work he's been doing, aggressively working with Franklin Company to keep it within budget as far as the 908, which is the insurance renewal recovery line.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Norton?
I'd like to ask the controller to explain how we were able to retain both the self-insured retention limit of $1 million and the premium for that. Our risk manager used a very aggressive strategy, which the underwriters have accepted, and subsequently, the result has been maintaining the self-insured retention at $1 million. We were anticipating that would be increased by approximately $500,000 with a concomitant increase in premium, none of which will be happening.
So I was hoping
Wait, if I can interrupt, do we want to discuss what our strategy was?
No, actually, I was hoping you weren't going to ask that tonight because I'm not prepared. I have an extensive cheat sheet that's back in the office. He looked at the different levels of self-insured retention. We haven't finished the process, and I was going to give a full reconciliation and update on the process in July.
We can wait till July.
But I mean, he covered it at the audit committee meeting.
Okay. Go back to your controller's report, I'm sorry.
Anyway, it's good news. Going back to, I wanted just to repeat, and I know Greg Berjosian asked the question again at the audit committee meeting, how we're doing this. Step one this is under Hurricane Sandy. The claim is up to $8 million, and we're getting money in. In December, we got $225,000, and we got $800,000 last month. Just want to repeat the process. The eligible buckets that we could reimburse are the general fund, the capital non-recurring fund, and the golf course. Okay. Right now, the insurance claim for the $8 million claim has not been identified as to what is going to be reimbursed. There's an extensive page that gives you all the categories going from the tree reimbursements to the police overtime to the fire overtime to the remediation up at the Island Beach, the Great Captain's Island, Todd's Point. So the strategy that we've developed working with the auditors is we took the first piece, the $800,000, the $225 we put into from December into the general fund. The $800,000 we split evenly between the general fund and the capital non-recurring fund. No particular reason, we just can't identify where the insurance pieces are going. For example, there was an appropriation for $3,801,000 from Joseph Liano back in December. You've gone through two sets of releases. That money, we haven't fully spent it, and we haven't identified what portion has been reimbursable at what percentage. So we've just decided to take half of it for general fund, half of it for capital non-recurring fund, and what we're going to do in fiscal 13-14 is reconcile all three pieces so that the general fund, the capital non-recurring fund, and the golf course will get the appropriate amounts. We just, at this point, we cannot identify where each piece is going to go. And I just wanted to repeat that because aside from Greg's question, it does come up periodically, not only from the VET, the RTM, but the departments, especially the golf course, because it's a lot of money for tree reimbursement. Moving through the controller's report, earlier, one of the good news stories for the year is we continue, although we're not prepared tonight to give you a full reconciliation on the fund balance under the budgetary and the GAAP basis, our cash flow, our cash is increasing $15 million. It looks like it's going to increase $15 million over the previous year. There's a couple of different components. One of the components is the increase in the general fund balance, and there is an old piece from 6 years ago. We had gone to market in May of 2007 because we had to close on the Tuckman Pomerantz piece and did a bond issue for $11.3 million. And we did not have the money appropriated, and what we did was we had a 5-year lag before we got the final piece. So in the 6th year, which is this year, we got $2.5 million cash to make it whole as far as a payable between the capital non-recurring, the general fund, and then there's also a lag somewhat of capital project spendings. For the non-bunded projects, we call it the Z fund, which is the capital projects that are funded through the mill rate. we've got an increase there as far as not spending. But again, ever since we've moved away from the modified pay-as-you-go, fund balance continues to increase and the cash flow seems to increase substantially each year, notwithstanding the prepayments, which in the last 2 years amounted to over $30 million. So that's, again, it's a cash flow. And when I was talking before about the Nathaniel Witherall, that's one of the reasons why we were trying to get that June 27th $1 million in there, just trying to make the accounts look better. Having said all of that, I'll open it up to any questions that anybody might have in the controller's report or the cash forecast.
Mr. Huffman?
The prepayments that you mentioned, payments of next year's taxes in advance generally, are you showing those as a June receipt or prior, or are they not actually being held over for the July receipt?
They're showed as a debit to cash. Say it's $31 million. It's a debit to cash and it's deferred revenue.
Okay.
The revenue doesn't get recognized until July 1 of next year.
Exactly. So that's actually showing up only into July.
Yes.
So, anybody else? Let me ask a question about what you just said. We typically, at the end of each fiscal year, anticipate we're going to have X amount unspent. We anticipate X amount of the general fund is going to be transferred over to reduce tax levy in the next budget. So it was my understanding this year that we were going to add to our unrestricted fund balance a couple, $3 million after we did that. Where do you see us now? Adding more than a couple, three to the fund balance, unrestricted fund balance?
Roland and I were actually talking about this just before the meeting had started at 6:30, and the revenues with 2 weeks left, not including the 60-day accrual, we were going through all the little line items, and we're looking at on the revenue side is maybe $3 million added to fund balance. Roland made the comment last week about the expense side when he gives the economic update. We're at the mercy of the departments and how much they encumber the next couple of weeks. But I don't know, what would you say it's, so maybe 3 to 5 million is added to fund balance
Okay,
on a general fund.
on a general fund, okay. I got to think about how I'm going to explain that. Okay. Anything else in the controller's report? Ms. Tarkington?
Peter, when you give us the reconciliation on the Sandy expenditures, you're going to have the expenditures by department and then what you're going to do with them in terms of the funds, when you eventually get to this? Because don't we have the issue with we'll call it the use of the funds that we had intended in the capital non-recurring for the soils? So doesn't that, we've used a lot of the capital non-recurring in this fiscal year because of Superstorm Sandy, and also I think because of the safety and security for the Board of Education, that latest quite large appropriation that we had. So when you figure this out, you will be sort of reimbursing, at least thinking in terms of that?
Well, no.
No.
Because the year is over with. You can't reimburse, for example,
rebuilding it. Is that a better word?
Just to take the police overtime and the fire overtime as Category 1. The year's over with.
Right.
When we get the revenues next year, it's going to go straight to a revenue. Okay? In the case of the capital non-recurring, we'll do a proration after it expended everything between, we know what the general fund, it's already expended. We don't know what the capital non-recurring is because the projects are still ongoing. We'll do a proration. That's another piece. And it'll go to the fund balances of the respective funds. None of the accounts are going to be reimbursed. The third piece is the tree claim. It looks like right now that the tree claim might come in at $700,000 to $800,000. Just to say it's $700,000. The tree claim is got half. Excuse me. Half of it's the general fund, and half of it is the golf course. So the golf course is going to get their piece from the tree fund. So the three buckets are going to be the general fund, the capital non-recurring, and the golf course when all the dust settles. And that's going to take another six to 12 months.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the controls report?
Move to accept, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion to accept,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Tarkington. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? 1100. Moving on to the treasurer's report.
Move to accept that, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Tarkington. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining. Item number 6, standing committee reports. I know we have some included in our package. Does anybody have anything else? I didn't think so. Liaison reports. I'm gonna, because of lack of time, I'm gonna bring one up on public safety. And so I'm gonna include Mr. Finger in there, so if I get something wrong, he can sort of, I didn't get a chance to write this up, but as you remember, the volunteer firefighters, there's some discussions that came up a couple of years ago about their benefit program, their recruiting office, and that whole budget. During that period, the BET chose to reduce some of the appropriations for those benefits and take another look at the overall volunteer system and try to see what we could do to help. Bill and I got called to a district chiefs meeting, which is not the first one we've been called to, but it was very interesting. Round Hill Fire Department is organizing. They've done some construction work and built dorm rooms. They're working on a on-call, well, sort of, I'll call it on-shift. I don't have the terminology for this, for a volunteer firefighter program where certified, tagged, experienced, they have a whole program on this. It's sort of detailed, where they're going to actually be on schedule, where they'll start at, say, 6:30 at night till 6:30 in the morning. They'll call in, they're on shift, they're ready to go, and they roll, and it helps with the coverage. But what's really neat is that it's not just Round Hill. They have a plan to incorporate all the departments in the town. So a Sound Beach volunteer firefighter could be at Glenville. It's very interesting. They're in the early stages. They've got a well thought out presentation. I think they're working with with Chief Szynski. I think they'll be working with the Board of Selectmen in announcing this. But what's really interesting is it's certainly they're working their way back to, unified, trying to build some numbers. They look at it as a recruitment. There's no reason that you need to be a volunteer resident in the town because we have people that are in town daytime. So they're really working on expanding this. It's kind of interesting to see. I don't think we gave them. I think we gave them some pointers on what they should do step by step. They're very clear that there's no financial needs to any of this, right? I think they were very clear. So I'm looking at this as I talked to Mr. Tessine, and it hasn't gotten that far to his office yet, but I think it's a really worthwhile program, and I think they're working with us, and I think they're looking for us for support as they do this. It's been a while coming. It's been a couple of years now, I think. But, Bill, do you have anything?
The only thing I would add is that I think it was last summer we met with them. We've met with them several times, as you pointed out, but in our meeting with them last summer up at the Round Hill Station, we talked about this. And they had just come back from some kind of convention, and they indicated that they were going to explore developing a program. And so here we are, almost a year later, and they have been working on it. So it was very interesting. As Mike pointed out, it was I thought quite a good presentation. They're still fine tuning it, but it was well thought out and presented nicely.
The idea, the concept comes from Purchase, New York, and the state of Maryland has a lot of these programs. And I had mentioned to them, and they were aware of it. And I think they might have been a step ahead, but it's certainly something that will be beneficial. Especially if they can get to where they're 7 days a week, 2 people as a minimum. So I think that's a good program. But I didn't get a chance to write that up, and I'm sorry. Anything else? Revaluation team we have. Okay, special. Ms. Harkington?
Yes. There's one additional point here in the revaluation report that Mr. Finger and I submitted. Since Ms. Elliott is here, perhaps she could just give us a 30-second update on the software package that the town is looking at to acquire for to replace Munis. I know there's been an additional meeting, and
Is there anything that you think we need to add?
Well, I think we've finally gotten down to the details. The devil's always in the details. Today we got another submission from the potential vendor that we have selected, giving us an exact detail of what exactly we are going to get versus what the town has to provide as far as software and hardware. It is my understanding that once we have this, there is the contract is in process of being reviewed by legal department. That should be done shortly. And then I believe it is the IT department, it is in his budget, and then he shall be signing the contract. Hopefully, we will then be on schedule to get this in place in the assessor's office sometime in August for us to do our 2013 grand list on this new software.
Great, fantastic, fantastic. Good to hear that progress. Okay, item 8. Mark's not here with Central Firehouse. For those of you, I just want to make a comment on it. That is a project being run by DPW. That is the cleanest demolition I have ever seen. I mean, they're taking that building down. It's just going fast, and they're doing a wonderful job. Again, it's a project run by our own town. Okay, GHS, that's going good. New business. Old business. Approval of BET minutes for May 20th, 2013.
I move that we approve the minutes for the May meeting.
A second.
Discussion?
I have a question.
Question?
The minutes that are in our packet are not readable.
Yes, what happened there?
I presume the minutes that we're going to sign and put on the website will be
Yeah,
actually legible?
They've got all those boxes in them.
That was my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, mine has the same, see how it has all that?
I didn't print mine.
Yes.
Sometimes Elaine has a problem when she prints it, I'm not sure why.
Okay on mine.
Okay. Okay, with that said, okay. Minutes have been moved and seconded. Further discussion? That was a good point, though, Joe. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. Mr. Norton, do you have anything before you this month?
No, sir, no, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Kiernan, do you have anything this month?
No, I do not.
I do. I normally have my normal chairman's report. I can tell you about things that I've been doing and where I've been representing our board and reaching out. I think that's part of what I want this board's style to be, is to actually be there to answer questions. I am working on our tours and our police academy. I'm actually thinking about asking Peter Minarski to keep an eye out whether are we going to have any items on our July agenda to cancel that meeting. And we have to do that with some notice. It's been done before. I'm not the one making this up. Don't. July. Our August meeting, we don't have an August meeting scheduled, but we do have a July meeting scheduled.
The only thing I can think of is the fire department got the bids back for one pumper, and they came in over and they asked, could we swap out the money from one, and they were told no. So they're in the process of not to rebid. If the rebidding comes back with the same result, I think their intent is to come in and ask for an additional appropriation, which would go to the September RTM. I can look at the calendar.
And see what the dates are then.
The dates are there, but that's the only thing I can think of right now.
The insurance.
Okay, I'm just putting it out there so you can take a look and see if that's,
If you recall, last year, we started the process of stripping away the old bonded projects and closing them out, and we did it last year in July. We can do that in September.
okay.
There's no
I'm just
urgency.
contemplating it because there's certain things, one of the things that I'm working on is some guideline stuff and with that. So we could do that.
Okay.
You could just keep that in mind, that if we really do come up with really a nothing agenda, if there's a way around it. I'd also like to applaud the schools and our superintendent and our Board of Ed members for reaching out to what I call inviting us to the table. This is something that I have personally worked on for a long time, and I think they're beginning to do it. And I think with the issues that they have on the agenda in front of them, I not only applaud their efforts, but I somehow wonder if this is what I really wanted, because they sure have their fair list. But this month, more than in the past, I need to share something with all of you of what I see this board needs to do. We need to restore some culture that's been deteriorating, and it's affecting not only the board's performance, in my opinion, but it gets to our neighbors. Over the past month, I've seen issues basically one after another. I'm at the point where is it the chicken or the egg, is my favorite saying. I've personally, since in the past 3 or 4 months, I've been accused of things that I don't like. I'll use the term illegal meeting. Or I've seen written correspondence where someone has suggested that a town official, manager, might have been directly told to withhold information to a member of our board. And I think when I look at that, you can assume that if that goes unchecked, it will get worse. When I see emails, traffic that's going to non-members about things that are going on, or hear comments about employee performance or their behavior in public, that's okay, but when I think some of it could border on negligent, I think that will only get worse if it goes unchecked. If one believes that I'm wrong and things aren't getting worse, well, they haven't attended some of our recent meetings. Where the issue begins has been my focus. Well, how did we get here? But that's no longer my focus. I believe it's everyone's job here to start tomorrow. Let's start all over again here. And I hope we can all begin that process. Count me and I'll be there for that. But I think that's really important going forward. I will share a little conversation I had with Randy on the phone today. It was great. Thank you for the call. And I realize how much all of us do need to chat with each other. We do. We're just, there's a lot of things going on, and I appreciate that. And, you know, obviously I think certain committee members are constantly talking and doing that, but we have to do more than that. I spent some time, I try to spend time with all of our members. I spent some time with Mr. Goldrick last week. Great, fantastic. But I think we need to do more of that, because I think if we don't, I think it's just, we're not doing our neighbors. My favorite saying is, this isn't state government or federal government. We all sleep under the same trees. We're all neighbors, so it's sort of important. So with that, I thank you for your time on that. So I would look at, Mr. Brady, you're up this month.
I move we adjourn.
Seconded.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?